On Halloween, October 31st, the largest environmental catastrophe in Alberta's history occurred. 1 billion litres of toxic chemicals emptied into the Athabasca River. The impact of this is devastating for the watershed from Hinton to the Arctic Ocean. 19 days later, this Environment Minister finally got around to issuing an environmental protection order. To the Minister, this is negligence of the most serious kind. Why on earth didn't you act sooner?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I've said several times in this House, we acted on day one as soon as this incident happened. Our investigators were on the scene right away, making sure that communities were first and foremost notified. Yesterday, we put an environmental protection order in place to make sure that it would be one more tool that would ensure us that the work to be completed efficiently and set the timelines to go forward. But, Mr. Speaker, our directors and our investigators were working with the companies throughout this process, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. This minister made no public announcement of this catastrophe. The entire contents of this toxic tailings pit emptied into one of the longest and most important rivers in Alberta. And all the minister did was quietly call municipalities along the river and ask them to turn off their water systems. Clearly, the minister was hoping that no one would notice. But now, 19 days later, we know that enormous and perhaps permanent damage has been done to the Athabasca watershed. To the Minister of the Environment, how do you account for this extreme negligence on your part?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and perhaps maybe he should talk to his member sitting next to him, because she said it was 5 days later when we notified Albertans, and quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, it was the very day we made sure Albertans were notified. We put it on our bulletin, we contacted communities, made sure that people were aware that needed to make sure. Mr. Speaker, we have worked with communities on this, and in fact, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give you a quote from Dr. Jim Talbot, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and he has said, "I am confident that at no time was there a risk to the public's drinking water. As the Chief Medical Officer, my primary concern is that proper procedures are followed and that the water the public is drinking is safe." And, Mr. Speaker, this is exactly what we have done from day one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The reason that the water is safe is because they're no longer drawing it from the Athabasca River. If they did, it would not be safe. This toxic blob isn't just going to merrily float downstream and into the Arctic Ocean. It contains large amounts of lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury, all extremely toxic, Mr. Speaker. These chemicals will be deposited along the course of the Athabasca River and will poison the environment from here to Inuvik for a generation. The minister didn't take action and tried to keep it quiet. What does she have to say for herself?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we did not try to keep this quiet. Immediately as soon as we found out about this, we were on scene and we made sure that it was public on our bulletin and made sure the public knew about this. Mr. Speaker, since day one, we have been taking samples. We continue to take samples. We make those samples public, Mr. Speaker. We are very concerned about this, and we've been very proactive to make sure that all of this has been taken care of, and we are on top of this right from day one, Mr. Speaker. It is very important for us to make sure that the public has the access and the information to the data that we release.